Welcome, everybody, to a look in the future, where we ask that question, what would you do if you can go to the future and ask yourself questions? How do you want to grow your firm? How can you transition to advisory services? How can you be relevant to your clients? Luckily for us, we get just to ask the time traveler himself, Paul Latham, and learn the knowledge we need today to evolve into advisory services and become the true most relevant advisor to our clients. Now, Paul brings three amazing things with him. He's built a successful accounting practice in the UK, so he understands accountants. In fact, he's built his firm into an advisory powerhouse, which sold for $45 million in 2001. Number two, he's helped take a business public, building it to a market value in excess of $400 million. So he really understands what business owners need and value, and we as accountants need to provide to them. And finally, number three, we don't need to invent the flux capacitor. We can just ask Paul and learn from the transition he made 20 years ago, as we're all struggling with that today in the United States. How do we provide proactive advisory services to our clients? As always, I'm Garrett Wagner, your entrepreneurial CPA channel host. And as always, I'm super excited to sit down with Paul Latham for a virtual chat from Rock Solutions and get some insight on how we can help be successful today. And Paul, I thought we could talk about something that's really on everyone's mind today. And we're starting to recover from COVID-19, from the coronavirus. Twofold. One, let's talk about how can accountants start to be proactive? And then how do we do it? Because I see a lot of struggle with that. So Paul, welcome. And let's hear from your wisdom.
Hi, Garrett. Good to see you again. By the way, talking about recovering from COVID-19, apologies for my haircut. It still hasn't been cut. And in fact, is going to be cut tomorrow. So massively looking forward to having my haircut. So yeah, recovery is truly underway if that's happening. Proactivity. Yeah, it's an interesting subject. I mean, to me, there are two aspects to it in terms of your question. There's sort of get going in the first place, and then there's actually having conversations with clients of a meaningful nature. So in terms of get going in the first place, we've covered that in various previous episodes, but I personally don't think there's anything better than having a conversation with your clients in the very first instance to sort of say, we've been thinking about how we want to do business, and somehow or another, we've got ourselves into a mode of being reactive and doing compliance and so on. And it really wasn't what I intended when I became an accountant. I really wanted to help businesses and so on. But somehow or another, the industry's pushed us in this sort of compliance, backward-looking, reactive style. And we've decided to change that. And we're going to become more proactive, more forward-looking. And to do that, you really have to help us. Because there's no point me guessing what you want me to be proactive about. We need to understand your needs better. And then you get into some conversation about diagnostics and basically understanding questionnaires of one sort or another to understand the client's needs that begins to take you to then a more specific place to talk about. So as you know, Garrett, we've gone through this before at Hayden Rock. We use things like the CIQ diagnostic for that sort of opening conversation. And then if we're, for example, delving more into a business, we drill down into the biz diagnostic. So that initial conversation about, beginning to be proactive, apart from summoning up the courage to have that little fairly honest conversation, I don't think is that difficult. I'm just going to turn back to you, Garrett, on that point before I move on. But, does that seem difficult to you? It doesn't seem difficult to me.
No, and I think, like you said, have the courage and kind of use this recovery from the coronavirus as a way to position it of, hey, as we all move past the downtime and what we all just went through, we want to be proactive to you. We want to help you clarify direction, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
Through that, we've realized as we took time to reflect, we were too reactive before. As we move out of this, we want to help you grow moving forward.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, that's a very good point you made there, which I think we talked about in maybe one of our most recent episodes. But there is no better time than now to reposition yourself and using, the time we've all been locked up as a period of reflection makes perfect sense. And no one is going to be surprised by that conversation. And no one, I promise you, I've asked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients over the years, which would you prefer me to be, proactive or reactive? And I have yet to meet a client who says, I prefer reactive. So there's nothing to be scared of. other than just having a slightly different conversation. I think where accountants generally find it slightly more difficult is then moving into having a conversation of a meaningful nature about some aspect maybe of their business. And you see, the way I do this, and I do it because I'm a very structured person. I do it in a really structured way, and to be honest, it's the only way I can do it. And I learned over many, many years. So I started with a conversation, and by the way, this isn't necessary; it's just what I did. But I positioned it really by saying, in the very first instance, I know nothing about your business. They used to give me that if I was first meeting them, they'd always give me a business card, or I'd give them one. So I had one handy. And I'd always say, you see this business card? What I know about the detail of your business, honestly, I couldn't fill the back of a business card with it. It rarely mattered what business. I mean, I don't pretend to be experts in people's business. And I think it's a dangerous place to pretend to be experts in people's business. These people that want to go into niches, I think it's really dangerous and limiting territory. But nonetheless, so what I used to say was, look, you, the client, are the expert in your business. What I am is an expert in what you might call growing any business, the fundamentals of growing any business. And what that allows you to move to is a series of what I call conversation crutches. And you've heard them all, by the way. We've done about 50 odd of these webinars now, and I think you've pretty much heard them all. Whether it's 3 ingredients of business success: vision, plan, and desire, or 4 ways to grow a business, or 7 wastes, or there's only three things that matter in a business. You've got to deliver value to your customers. You've got to create value to the customers. You've got to then deliver what you promised, and then you've got to capture value and make a profit. And so it's all about growth, delivery, and measurement. And you see, those are examples, whether it's 4 ways to grow a business, 7 wastes, or 3 ingredients of success. And I've got several of them, but probably not that many, 10, 12 at the most. And almost any question that a business owner asks, it's relatively easy to pigeonhole it in the first instance into one of those areas. So, obviously they talk about growth a lot. So straight into 4 ways to grow a business. Revenue is made up of 3 components. It's the number of customers multiplied by the number of transactions by the average dollar price per transaction. There are only 3 ways to grow revenue. You either get new customers, do more things with the ones you've got, or increase the average dollar price. Full stop, that's it. And there's an example, you see, of once you've done that and you've gone 4 ways to grow a business, 3 revenue ones, one is to do with cost, and so on. Using my parlance, or in fact one of my colleagues really, John Cuttin, it's about what you're then doing is you're leading the conversation, because you've taken the conversation into your turf. 4 ways to grow a business. I know all about that. I can talk about that. It sparks discussion. It sparks conversation. As soon as you say those 3 things and then say, so which one's going to be the best for you? Which is the most, gut feel, what would you do first? Try and win new customers. Try and do more things with the ones you've got, or increase the average dollar price per transaction. And you'll get an answer. And then once you get an answer, you can develop the conversation. So say they win new customers. Well, how are you going to do that? What is your value prop? Let's have a look at your value proposition. And now let's talk through how we can maybe improve your value proposition. So, see, I think that's the key. Once you have, whatever they say, it will fall into one of those areas. It'll have something to do with KPIs. It'll have something to do with people. It'll have something to do with reducing cost. It'll have something to do with growing revenue. So once you've got those little mantras worked out, you're on your turf. You then do your, to use an English expression, spiel, and then you're talking for 15 to 20 minutes, and then they're talking back to you. And before you know where you are, what you're doing is having a proactive conversation. And I think there's a key there, which is learning those 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 little tools. What we do, I mean, this is I suppose, a little advert for Hayden Rock, but what we also do at Hayden Rock is provide accountants with a sort of cheat, in that we have these things called knowledge injection videos. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Oh, yeah, I think you have to let me do this. Can you let me share the screen, Garrett? There we go. So I'm just going into, this is the Hayden Rock Biz platform, but somewhere in there we have these things called knowledge injection videos. And if you go on to here, you'll see there's a whole list of them. So, the 3 ingredients of business success, or somewhere lower down, 4 ways to grow a business, or the 7 wastes, or whatever it may be. And the little cheat then that the accountant can have, if they're not that comfortable with saying all the little words around these areas, just play the video. So, I don't know, let's just say we're talking about one we've dealt with before, tangible versus intangible resources. That conversation is pretty prevalent at the moment because of the shift towards virtual. So, go to this particular video. Are you using the right resources? I won't play it all. It's a couple of minutes.
Are you using the right resources?
Let's just find.
Tend to be, itself is virtual. It's very difficult to touch. Intangible assets include things like data and brand and processes and relationships. So why the shift? Essentially, intangible resources like virtual people, virtual management, virtual premises, and technology itself make a business more efficient and more effective, whilst other resources like data, brand, processes, and relationships make a business more valuable. Remember, in the 21st century, 80% of an average business value is intangible. The evidence is all around us. Think about businesses like Uber. They own no taxes. Amazon, they have no bookstores. Airbnb, they have no hotel rooms. Don't be content to only consider traditional resources. Think virtual, think outsource, think intangible.
So, apologies for that little advert, but it sort of shows in a way, you see, we saw a minute or so there of one of those injection videos, and you can easily imagine how that then sparks a conversation. So what can you do in your business, and so on. So I think, to me, 2 elements to going back to your original question, Garrett. It's one, how you get started. It's that honest conversation. I want to be more proactive. I need to understand your needs, do some sort of questionnaire, whatever it is. And then once you're into the conversation, don't try and pretend to be the expert about that client's business. You're on their turf. Get yourself onto your turf, use some of those crutches, and you'll be amazed at how easy the conversations become. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. I hope that helps, Garrett.
Yeah, so even we can transition that now to right now what's going on in middle of 2020 with all the uncertainty, follow those same steps. Have meaningful conversations, understand the client's needs, provide insight, and don't pretend to know everything. And because at a certain point, and I see a lot of counsel with that we feel like we need to know everything. Like it's a tax return. Like I'm going to bring out or have one, like a book of the tax, going to be like, well, on this page, it says this.
Yes.
And that doesn't really work.
I think that's, you're hitting on a key point there, because accountants are used to being the expert in the room. So it's quite a mental shift, but there is a clue in the word advisory. Business advisory is not telling people what to do. It's having a discussion and, forming the basis of maybe having a little bit of advice. But advice is not the same as consultancy where you expect them to actually come in and do something. Basically, business owners want a shoulder to lean on. They want to have a talk. They want to discuss. They want to chit chat. And the more you can get it onto your turf, that's the key. I for all sorts of businesses. House builder. I was talking about, I think, in the previous episode. Could I build a house? Absolutely no way could I build a house. I wouldn't begin to know. I can barely use a hammer, but somehow I've helped that business to double and quadruple in size, and that's nothing to do with knowing how to build a house. It's knowing how to build a business. and using the principles like 4 ways to grow, 7 ways. That particular business is really focused on 4 ways to grow, value proposition, and the 7 wastes, and that's how they've grown.
Well, perfect, Paul, and thank you for sharing your insight and wisdom, and hopefully everyone got some knowledge from there and feels more comfortable giving proactive advice to their clients today, because that's, like Paul said, that's what our clients want. They want to talk to us, share what they're feeling, and then look to us to provide them some guidance. Not absolute 100%, this is what you must do. We'll reflect back and put them on that right path as we talk about clarifying direction. And if you want to help clarify your direction and see how ready you are for this future we're moving back into, take your own biz survey and get a free objective assessment of how prepared your firm is for the future. As a special benefit to watching this show, we'll provide you the results with your biz score and a quick meeting to go over. There's a link below. I encourage everybody to take the test and see how ready your firm is for future success. As always, thank you for watching. You can click to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And as always, we challenge you to take action to change the world and invest in yourself.